For my entire childhood, my parents gave my allowance to my older brother. My girlfriend finally asked why I panic when anyone asks to borrow money. I was 9 years old the first time it happened. My father handed me a crisp $10 bill for cleaning the garage all weekend. Before I could put it in my pocket, my older brother Damien walked into the kitchen, and my mother intercepted my hand. She plucked the bill from my fingers and pressed it into his palm. Your brother needs it more. He's saving for something important. Damien smirked at me and walked away. When I asked my father why I'd worked all weekend for nothing, he told me family helps family, and I needed to stop being so selfish. I was 9. I didn't even understand what selfish meant. That became the pattern for the next 8 years. Every dollar I earned went to Damien. When I mowed lawns around the neighborhood, my mother would meet me at the door and collect my earnings for my brother's needs. When relatives gave me birthday money, it vanished from my dresser by morning. When I got my first real job at 15, my parents demanded I hand over my paychecks. They'd deposit them for me, they said. I found out years later they'd been depositing everything into an account in Damien's name. I worked 30 hours a week my junior year and never saw a penny. When I asked about the money, my father said Damien was going to college and I probably wouldn't, so the money was better spent on someone with potential. I started hiding cash in places they couldn't find, inside book covers, taped to the underside of my mattress, buried in a jar behind the shed. But Damien always found it. He'd tear my room apart while I was at school, and my parents never punished him. They said I shouldn't have been hoarding money from family in the first place. By the time I turned 18, I had saved exactly $42 in a container my parents didn't know about. That money got me a bus ticket out of that house. I never went back, but the fear never left. I kept separate accounts nobody knew about. I lied about how much I made. I physically could not let anyone borrow money without my chest tightening and my hands going numb. My girlfriend Layla noticed within weeks of us moving in together. She'd ask to borrow $20 for groceries, and I'd freeze completely. Couldn't move, couldn't speak, couldn't breathe. She thought I was cheap at first. She thought I didn't trust her. Last month, she finally sat me down and asked why I acted like every money conversation was a life or death situation. I told her everything. She held me while I shook. I thought that was the end of it. But then my mother called and said she was throwing Damien a party for his 30th birthday, and she expected me to attend. I made the mistake of saying yes. The party was at my parents' house. Damien had put on weight and still lived in their basement at 30 years old. Halfway through dinner, my mother clinked her glass and announced that Damien was starting a business and the family was going to help fund it. She looked directly at me. We know you've done well for yourself. Your brother could use some support. My jaw clenched so hard, I tasted copper. Layla squeezed my hand under the table. Damien leaned forward with that same smirk from 20 years ago. Come on, little brother. You owe me. I asked him what exactly I owed him. He laughed. All those years of allowance? That was an investment. Time to pay it back with interest. Something cracked inside me. I pulled out my phone and opened a screenshot I'd kept for 3 years, a photo of an old bank statement I'd found in my parents' filing cabinet during my grandmother's funeral. It showed an account in Damien's name with deposits totaling over $12,000, deposits that matched exactly what I'd earned working all through high school. I turned the screen toward my mother. This is my money. Money I earned. Money you stole from a child and gave to your favorite son. My father stood up so fast his chair fell backward. How dare you bring this drama to your brother's celebration? I stood up too. How dare you steal from your own kid for 8 years and then ask him for more? Damien's face went red. That money was a gift. You're just jealous I was always the priority. Layla stood beside me. She'd been recording on her phone since my mother's announcement. Got it all, she said calmly. The part where you admitted to taking his earnings as an investment. The part where your parents called it support. This is going to make a great conversation with a lawyer. My mother started screaming that we were tearing the family apart. I told her the family had been broken since I was 9 years old, and nobody cared until I stopped being useful. We walked out while Damien shouted that I'd regret this. I filed a civil suit 2 weeks later. My parents settled out of court for $14,000. My stolen wages plus interest. Damien's business never launched. He still lives in their basement.